Alright, what's going on, guys? Nate Phillip with another episode of the PokeTalk podcast. What's going on?
Hey, not too much. This is going to be a unique episode in a way, so I'm pretty excited.
Yeah, a little more chill one. We're talking about kind of the social media side of the hobby and its influence, positives and negatives it's had over the couple years here. Kind of expressed myself in the last episode. I'm kind of feeling some burnout, and a lot of it is social media related. So I'm kind of seeing the downsides of it here lately, but yeah, we're going to be talking all about that. Definitely has some good sides, definitely have some bad sides, so we'll cover them all. But yeah, what have you been up to since last time?
Well, I'm editing a lot of photos, obviously, from New York. You know, there's thousands of photos I took. It would have been less if I could use a tripod in a lot of places, but, you know, I'm not going to get into that. But essentially, it's quite a few edits, and, like, I'm kind of, like, from a fine art trained from college. I have a minor in art photography, so basically, it's quite the process I do when it comes to my photo edits. So some can take a while, but I have some tourist photos, which I just bang, 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 bang. I just do a lot of quick things to make it really quick, and then the actual photos are fine art based. I will give a lot of time, and it can take like 30 minutes for a photo sometimes, you know.
Yeah.
But anyways, that's what I'm doing. It's a daunting task ahead of me. I'm only 60 photos in, and I'm like a fifth of the way through just the non-architectural shots. So yeah, it's gonna be some time. But other than that, I'm just getting excited for Guns N' Roses this weekend, Bob Dylan next month. So you know.
Yeah, pretty cool. Getting to see some shows.
Yeah, some legends, honestly, of music, American music. So this is pretty huge for me. So I'm pretty excited.
Yeah, I haven't really been into much. Just had some friends visiting this weekend, just really relaxing. But yeah, that's another thing that's kind of taking me out of the hobby. Been trying to hang out with some people here and there.
Yeah.
But yeah, just overall a little bummed with the hobby, especially after Worlds. We can go ahead and hop on into the news, and then we'll kind of touch on that later. But yeah, it is. There's not much to be excited for in the hobby as far as new things in the last 2 weeks. You know, Worlds is wrapped up and all done. We talked about that last time, and pretty much, you know, it's nice to be over with. You do see a lot of, like, I don't know, things kind of go back to normal after Worlds. You know, there's not as much exciting stuff. But that makes sense. You know, they're trying to announce a lot of stuff. They announced a lot of stuff at the Worlds themselves, and then you got all the new products. So, yeah, I just think we're heading into a little lull in the hobby.
Yeah.
It probably will ramp back up again a little closer to holidays, but
Yeah, I expect around, you know, when their holiday stuff starts coming out, they're already revealing some of that.
yeah. So it won't be long. We'll be having the
Yeah.
holiday stuff.
You gotta have ebb and flows, though, right? Like, this is kind of something I've learned from several things, but obviously playing Pokemon Go, just like, especially coming back, you gotta have ebb and flows. It's okay to play hard sometimes, or, you know, go hard in the hobby, but you have to have downtime and venture into other hobbies, other interests, whatever, or else you're gonna get burnt out.
Yep. And that's kind of like part of my problem too. It's like, you know, I pretty much anything else that I've had, I've like sold off and put into Pokemon, so it does better for my Pokemon hobby, but it really doesn't allow me to escape anywhere else. But yeah, the making video parts kind of satisfy me a little bit, but haven't really been motivated with that a lot though.
I would say a lot of your hobbies involve collectionists of some sort, even if it isn't Pokemon, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you're never more than arm's reach away, figuratively and literally, from being within the hobby. And sometimes, like for me, I got like photography. Obviously, that's been one of my main things, separate from everything else, and that allows me to sometimes escape. And then sometimes I get so deep in thought that I forget what day it is as I'm meditating. Seriously. So like you need to have those areas of escape, which is key, honestly, just with it to be able to have this nice cathartic release.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I need to find something like that. I guess technically it is doing the video thing, and not just Pokemon videos, but I like doing normal videos, like day to day stuff, and editing those. So I need to get back into that for a little escapism. Because, like,
Yeah.
yeah, editing videos does that for me. But if I'm editing Pokemon videos, it's not really much of a release or a break. But
No.
yeah, for the news itself this time around, like we said, not much. There's
No.
a little bit with the upcoming Japanese set, which will be called Raging Surf. Um,
Yay.
yeah, this is just another like kind of half set for Japan that's going to release on September 22nd. It's going to be incorporated into our Paradox Rift on the English side, which comes out in November. So it's going to be one of the two sets that make up that set for us.
Some of the
Pretty
cards, I would say they're keeping with the trend.
of like the simplicity.
Yeah, to an extent. I actually made a note of that. And they are to an extent. That doesn't mean it's bad. Like this Henyer from Raging Surf. Um, I like how they focus on the color with this Pokemon, and I really like the aesthetic of it. But like then you have some of them, like for example, the Mantike. There's a lot of detail in that one.
Mm-hmm.
But then you have obviously like the other ones they showed, the Minun Plusle and the Vettel. Like they incorporate a lot of more colors and less focus on detail at times, which it seems to be a style of a lot of their full art cards, which isn't bad. It's just I can't help but notice that trend. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't.
Yeah. Yeah, like Veltal, like kind of in the Y pose, and just
Yeah,
got like a lot of swirls around him. Looks really cool, but yeah,
yeah,
it is a little
exactly.
basic. Then you have
He's like,
Garchomp kind of doing the same thing, but
mm-hmm,
it doesn't quite work as well because it's a
yeah,
lot more like the colors just aren't there.
yeah.
But
But yeah, I mean they're definitely I feel like playing with some stuff, which isn't a bad thing. Like after having where we were with Sword and Shield, like we felt like we were all about to blow, honestly.
yeah,
Like where it was going. It's like, oh my god, look at that floor.
yeah,
Uh, like I feel like you've mentioned multiple times, but like a cool down period was necessary, and they're starting off with a very at times minimalist approach at times with some of their style.
yeah. The cool art's there. They're trying not to overdo it, which makes sense. But yeah, it's still there to some extent. Um, yeah, the plus soul and minimum in this set and Mantike are pretty good.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, a little more detail there, but yeah, I can definitely see what you're talking about. But the Minior, I do really like what they did with that with all the colors
Yeah,
because he does come in like all those colors. So they made like a meteor shower with
and it's
him,
really
and
cool. Yeah.
yeah, it's got the simple but like
Hmm.
targeted look to that.
That's why
But
sometimes it works. There's, I think, a Clefairy last set, which was kind of or Clefable or whatever it was. I wasn't really impressed by it.
mm-hmm. Where it was just like the one out on the lake or something.
Yeah, yeah. That comes to mind. I was like, eh.
It was really cool, but yeah, it was definitely way more simple. But I did like that one though.
Oh, you did. Well,
But
could I say anything?
your opinion is wrong. But yeah, I mean, other than that, there was the Path to the Peak little mini series, I would call it, for Pokemon, where it's
Hmm.
just a little animated series showing this one kid's journey to worlds. Um, yeah, just kind of showing off the organized play program in a little lighthearted way and them winning the trophy and all that. Ishihara's got his own little character in there handing over the trophy. So that's really cool. Um,
Yeah, it's definitely geared towards obviously the younger audience, the animation style, the 10 to 12 or whatever age range that it's in, and I think that's great because they're obviously trying to get more people to play. I feel like they're kind of saying like, we're getting a lot of people are coming to these, a lot of people still play the World Tournaments. It's become quite the spectacle, but they know that they have a huge selection of their player base that are collectors. They need more players.
Yeah. Yeah, they definitely want to ramp up the play aspect of it, I feel like. Especially with Lorcana coming in and taking some play.
Which is why I'm curious with that how they're going to trend with some of their exposure, some of their media. We've mentioned before how some of the things we would like to see Pokemon do is increase their media exposure, mainly like movies. Like I'm not talking about their movies that they make on a dime budget with a script that an 8-year-old made and you just pass it off as a theatrical release. I'm talking.
Yeah.
I know that sounds bad, but like having watched a lot of the movies are
Good
absolute
guys trying to
garbage.
steal all the Pokemon. Let's stop
Oh
him.
no! Oh no!
Here comes Team Rocket trying to mess
Yeah.
things up.
And sometimes it's a little bit different. Like there's a few that stand out to me, like the Hoopa Unleashed and or Unbound or whatever it was, and a few other ones like the Arceus one stood out to me. The Jewel of Life, I think it was, but like a lot of them are just mundane and boring. And now you have all these franchises, especially with One Piece now. Like I haven't actually watched it. One Piece, I've tried so many times to watch the anime, I can't even mention it. But a lot of fans are absolutely obsessed with it. They loved where it was at, and now this is huge because the connotations it could mean towards not just Pokemon, but like Dragon Ball Z. But well, Dragon Ball Z is besides the point. But the thing is, Netflix and Pokemon already have this partnership. So, I mean, it's not too far to think. Could we see something that could potentially bridge the gap to more audiences and something that takes away Pokemon from just being a kid's thing?
Yeah. Yeah, and with One Piece coming to Netflix, from what I heard of the people who watched it early on,
Mm-hmm.
it was pretty good from what I hear. It,
Yeah.
it shows promise, but I did see something. I'm looking it up right now about Pokemon. Like they had an agreement with Japanese TV. Let me see exactly what it is, but they they essentially like have a live action Pokemon show that's in the works to premiere this fall.
Interesting.
So
But
yeah,
now is it going to be like the Detective Pikachu, where it's pretty fun and cute, like with the Pokemon in the universe, but it falls apart in the third act?
I mean
Like
it'll
that.
probably fall apart, but at some point. But it's apparently based around a Japanese actress,
Okay.
Nanase Nishino, who plays a new college grad and
So they're making it a little older. That's good.
struggles to click into a new job, a new city. Her mother sends her a care package that includes a Game Boy and Pokemon Red, and that's where her new adventure begins as she reunites with the game
Ooh,
she hasn't played since childhood.
interesting.
So
That's
it's
very interesting.
Yeah, it's almost like it's not even a live action like with actual Pokemon. It's almost like a story of this real person struggles through life and how they connect with Pokemon.
Well, you see, that's what we've kind of mentioned before that Pokemon needs to expand on, not just focus on actual canon. You know how with DC and Marvel, they have, yeah, like you got comic canon, right? But then you got live action canon. It's a whole other universe.
Yeah.
So this fixation of Pokemon trying to make everything into this one universe, they're besides the point when they could have it to where, I mean, I'm not trying to say multiverse of Pokemon. No, I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying you don't have to stick to this one um, iteration of Pokemon in all forms of media, including live action. And they kind of changed it a little bit with the Detective Pikachu. They changed it up a little bit, right? By introducing a whole new area, city, or whatever. And they can continue that. And it would be really interesting if they make it, I don't know. That could be, they could take that to really interesting places, but I doubt they will.
Yeah, it seems like it's a show about Pokemon's nostalgia in our
Yeah.
generation. So
Yeah.
not
Like they could
really
take
about
the,
Pokemon itself, but
and
yeah,
they
I,
could
I
take
do
that.
really want to check it out.
Yeah, for sure.
It's the most promising out of everything. Like it
Yeah.
seems like it's not geared towards kids, but geared towards like college kids who are like
Young
struggling.
adults. Yeah,
Yeah.
young adults. And I think that's interesting because if you make that connection of how, somehow in this mind or imagination, then
Hmm.
you kind of show that connection, and you have the Pokemon become real. And while you can make the whole thing like, while they're not necessarily real, but we believe that they are an actual thing that we created. So in a sense, they are real because we created them and we believe in them. And you can kind of make that, it can be really interesting from an artistic and story standpoint if that's kind of the route you go. And they use this to connect to other people and in the world. And yeah, that's where it can be really interesting. But I'd be shocked if they go that route.
Yeah. Even the subtitle is like the new series follows a young woman impacted by the power of Game Boy.
Yeah,
So it's like it probably follows this girl's story, and then like she found her power through like the nostalgia of the Game Boy.
yeah.
But something along those lines. But yeah, should be cool to see. See what else we got on news. I mean, there's not really much. I was going to
No.
say there were new cards shown off in that Pack to the Peak show. People were wondering if those were actually going to be real cards. Like there was like a new Vileplume
Hmm.
art, new Oddish art. I just think they just made some generic cards just for the show. So yeah, I don't really expect those to be real cards. So
No, I mean they look like real enough cards, but yeah, they're just
just filler cards for the show.
yeah,
They did reveal a 2023 holiday calendar set.
yeah.
These are the calendars that come out each year with the little snowflake emblem, and they're all hollows. But yeah, there's like a Pikachu, a Stantler, and then the rest are like water types. Glaceon is in there. Alolan Vulpix V. Not too exciting there. It's just promos that are within that box. And usually it's like a box for each day in December. You open a box and it has a little something. And then, these 8 cards are sprinkled throughout as well. But nothing too exciting there. And I think that's pretty much about it with the news, unless you have something else.
Uh, let's see. No, I just had that they revealed the Charizard EX Holiday 10. They have to have a Charizard piece for this holiday. Milk that cash cow, Pokemon. Milk it.
Yeah. Do a Charizard special box with all 3 EXs in it.
Oh yeah, I wonder what that's been done before.
Yeah.
I bet it'll be hundreds of dollars on the secondary market too. Uh,
Yeah. It's yeah, I'm sure we'll see something. There
yeah.
was, I think, actually, there was something that I saw. Let me double check this, but we might be joking, but I think I literally did see something.
Well, there's that. I mean, there is that Holiday EX10, but
Yeah,
I know
fall
they.
2023 collector's chest 10.
And I think they do have. They're also having a Charizard, not a UPC, but like a premium collection. I think for fall for the
Mm,
English.
I haven't seen
Yeah.
that, but
I remember seeing it on Poke Beach. I'd have to scroll back to find it, but
yeah,
let's
this
see.
is a little tin. It has the new starters on it, the last evolutions, but on the other side, of course, it has Charizard, you know, terrestrialized on the side. It comes with a terrestrialized Charizard coin and a Charizard binder, and yeah, Charizard sticker sheet, I think. So yeah,
Yeah, it's in October.
that's
The
our.
EX Premium collection is in October.
I gotcha. The one I'm looking at, this little 10, is November 17th.
Yeah,
Just a little crappy tin, but it's a cool little
just like
lunchbox
the
type thing.
Arceus ones. Yeah, it's like the Arceus ones, I think.
Yeah. But anyway, I guess with that, we'll hop on to the main topic. Like we said, this might be a little shorter one, but that is a-okay. It's more of a chill episode, little light episode. But yeah, social media's influence in the hobby. And yeah, where do we even start with this?
Where? You've mentioned we can start in the time before time when it comes to YouTube. And yeah, I know you've mentioned it used to be very different within the hobby with social media and trading and forums and all that. Maybe just start there.
Yeah, the so what it used to be, there was not much hype in Pokemon. You were the odd man out for doing it. Um, yeah, I essentially really got back in and focused collecting in 2011, I would say. Before then, though, I would go to Walmart with some friends, buy like the 3 blister packs because those were the ones that seemed like you got hits in more. So, yeah, a lot of extra money was just casually spent walking into Walmart, while I was in high school buying packs. Um, I did mention before, I still saw EX. Like, it was kind of those things you see today where it's like, here's a stack of 20 Pokemon cards, like for $10. Like, you're not going to get anything good in there. It's just like a third party product. That's how it was with like EX packs. You'd go and like Secret Wonders, let's say, was the pack that was out at the time. So you'd have Secret Wonders out, which is Diamond and Pearl, I believe, and then you'd have like these old EX packs. It's like 4 EX packs for $10 because nobody wanted the old packs anymore. So these third parties was like just trying to sell off, 4 packs for $10, just random EX packs that nobody wanted back then. So yeah, that's the time I came into a hobby. It was a really nice chill time. You could pretty much collect what you wanted. I remember base set Charizards for good conditions. Like the going rate was like $20 for a really good one. So you could buy those all day. I remember even having the thought like, man, just every time I buy cards, like I'm going to buy one Charizard because, everyone loves Charizard. Wish I would have stuck to that plan, but it didn't work out that well because I was obviously trying to build my collection at the time. But that's one loud water bottle. But anyway, yeah, I was just building the collection at the time. I had a binder that I was trying to do all the secret rares in. So all the shinings, all the gold stars, they all had like a place in my binder. And like the crystal cards just made that goal seem unrealistic back then. They were very expensive at like $50 a piece. And you were just wondering like, how am I ever going to complete this binder? So that's the mindset a lot of people had. There was no social media influence outside of the very small amount of YouTubers. Leonhardt was around. Real Breaking Nate was around. Super Duper Danny was around very lightly. The king of the YouTubers was Primetime Pokemon. He would make a video every day of him opening packs. Sometimes it'd be 3 packs. Sometimes it'd be a booster box, but every day he had a little opening video. It's like, hey YouTube, this is Primetime Pokemon. Today I'm opening 3 packs. And he'd open the 3 packs and that was the video. And the thumbnail was just him holding the 3 packs. Probably didn't even make custom thumbnails back then, but
not the open face. Certainly.
Nope, not the O face and hype eyes and all that. But but yeah, that's how the hobby was for a long time, all the way up until 2016. I feel like 2016 hype with Pokemon GO and Evolutions did see some change. You started seeing, more videos and people opening booster boxes for fun. And that's pretty much how it was up until 2020. I mean, it's really hard to imagine that time now because it's just been going so hard the last 3 years. But, I mean, it really is insane to think about. Like, just in 2019, there wasn't really much happening. Like, we thought it was crazy then, but it was nothing compared to what is today. So, long story short, I definitely think 2020 and all the hype is the turning point for the hobby. We'll explain this a little more, but I don't think we're ever going to go back to that time. It's just the nature of the beast. It's what sports cards have been for a while. So Pokemon has just become that. Everyone knows, how to make money in the hobby now. or wants to try. So everyone's got their hand in it. Um,
And I think a part, like you kind of said, like it's not going anywhere, and I agree. I think pretty much everybody's going to agree, and the money's obviously the reason why. Yes, people love this hobby, you and I included. A lot of our people, even people that make money, again, you and I included. And whether you make money to try to make a business or you make money to try to level up, which is pretty much what we do. Well, we're not a business, but we make side money maybe, and then we'll go ahead and try to level up in terms of cards. But the aspect is, if you have this money, it's always going to include people, especially people who are doing things you probably don't like. And I think one way or another, whether if it's not necessarily maliciously,
yeah.
but whether for better or for worse, there's always going to be the aspect from social media influencers, that money driven aspect. And now this is kind of, well, this can be kind of, extrapolated for anything, any news, any medium, is what is this individual's agenda? What is this individual trying to do? What are they trying to sell? Why are they trying to sell it? What's the purpose? You have those aspects to consider, and ultimately, for a lot of these big social media influencers, this is their job.
Mm-hmm.
They have a personal liability when it comes to making sure they get people to keep on watching, sometimes for whatever the cost.
Yeah, and that was the biggest shift. YouTube has kind of been heading that way for a while. We really just saw it come into Pokemon, and Pokemon, as far as YouTube goes, is very underdeveloped still.
Mm-hmm.
You could really, like, if you really want to make a channel and put the time to make like insanely quality videos, I mean that would be a pretty good gig. There's a couple people starting to do it, but um, if you made like these vlog styles where you go to card shows and you have a mic on you and you're wheeling and dealing, like, I watch a lot of sports channels just because they do that. Like, I love just the nature of the hobby, wheeling and
Yeah,
dealing, and
and I.
like that's why I follow a lot of sports guys, because they do it really well. It's a really fleshed out YouTube space, and
Mm-hmm.
Pokemon could definitely benefit from going there a little more.
Which
But
takes effort and knowledge regarding to not just the market but the hobby. Now, compare that to a lot of areas of Pokemon. Well, what did we see after 2020 during the pandemic, or during 2020 in the pandemic? We saw a plethora of pop-up imitate channels that offered nothing different from what the big YouTubers were doing, like PokeRev with the pack openings. Name your person. You got your pack opening, you got your market side. Those are the two demographics I feel like when it comes to Pokemon YouTube, when it comes to the TCG.
yeah,
And a lot of people, because they lack knowledge of the market or enough to be, there are some people that did make YouTube channels, I'm not going to name them, that don't have the market knowledge, but they pretend like they do. And there is some of that, and they gained a lot of followers from there were certain ones that were able to build a strong community around that, and that was impressive, honestly.
yeah. I mean, really, you just got to put in the work and be consistent. If you're right or
Mm-hmm.
wrong, people will watch you just because. Even if you're wrong and you don't know what you're talking about, people will likely watch you more because they will make fun of you and like watch you for that reason. So it's just a weird world we live in. I've noticed like a lot of the people like me, like, we enjoy making videos, but we don't go above and beyond because we're just doing the videos out of like self interest. Like, we're just putting the knowledge out there. They're usually pretty boring videos. Like, I'll get on there and show my pickups and talk about how I got them. I don't make a thumbnail where my face is like wide open trying to eat like the biggest turkey leg of all time.
Yo!
So
It's like,
the views and stuff aren't there, but
yeah.
I'm real. I'm just like expressing the knowledge in like a normal way. If you met me in person, I'd probably say the exact same thing in the exact same way. So I don't really care to like do all that extra work to benefit from that. A lot of us could probably make some good videos and no doubt make a living off it, but if you're in the hobby and been in for like as long as we have, it's all secondary to you. Like the love for the hobby and the collecting part is number one. So that's the biggest difference. So, Rev has been in the hobby a long time, but as far as the YouTube scene, he kind of just started right before the hype, so he hasn't been there in the long haul, and he's became the biggest. So the biggest YouTubers you see are the new guys, like relatively new guys who just come in with a business focus above all
Mm-hmm.
else, which is totally fine.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, some of the older guys like Rusty TCA Gaming, he still makes videos. He's not gonna lie, he's pretty dry, but probably one of the most knowledgeable guys in the hobby. And
And he seems like a real person or a genuine person. That's what I like about
yeah,
him.
and that's where I think a lot of content is going. Like we can go ahead and talk about like the younger generation. Like it's almost like civilization being like more woke or so call it in the internet age. People take stuff for granted a lot of times before then, but now people are like more likely to call BS out or not believe what they see on the news. And maybe when YouTube was a thing, people clicked on those videos because he's looking excited, and it does get more clicks. But people are starting to think another layer ahead of that, like, oh well, look at this thumbnail, this guy's fake, so I'm going to take his video with a grain of salt. And why does he have to yell all the time? I think the younger generation is like thinking about that, and you might not get as big making boring videos, but the people you gain with those boring videos are more likely to stick with you and like you for who you are and not really like, the video type. Um, I'm sure
Uh,
people like Rev and them and Leon Hart are totally different in person, and I'm sure they're really likable, but if you meet them on the street and you see their videos, that is two separate people. And totally fine and understandable because it's their job and they're putting in all that effort because it's their job. I just think people are craving a more genuine experience. And, I think that because that's exactly what I'm doing. One of my favorite YouTubers is Catch 'em All Collectibles. He
you know,
does weekly live streams. It's just him talking. Pretty boring for people on the outside of the hobby, but that's who I like to listen to. He's very relatable because he's just talking. And if I met him in person, he'd be exactly the same. Like I know
hmm
I know him pretty well. Like he would be that guy that you see in the video. So I
Yeah,
don't
I
know.
think Pokemon Market or Catch 'em All Collectibles. I think he provides a great service to the hobby. Again, a little more of the drier aspect, but he provides detailed analysis and numbers, which a lot of the community like to see.
He loves
It's
some
not opinion.
spreadsheets, that's for
It's
sure.
not. It's not opinion based like you have with a lot of this, which is where a lot of things get in trouble and where you get to where people just spewing whatever the hell they want and people believe in it because people don't. People love the confirmation bias. But he provides a detailed analysis. Now, I do watch his videos. I don't watch them as much as you do, but that's really more because I minimize my social media content as a whole. Yes, I do use social media daily, but it's how I try to utilize different ones to keep my appetite at a minimal amount. Because from my experience, the more you use social media, the inevitability something will happen where a toxic conversation comes up.
Yeah.
I just feel like, but if you
Well,
keep
it's
it
definitely
at,
the types of social media too. Like
yeah, I agree,
you might
I
be you might
agree,
be on there less, but you spend a lot of time on the old Facebooks.
I do, but I also just do a quick post, and what I follow a lot are a lot of meme groups and cat groups. I made it to where I don't follow basically the more toxic stuff that I used to. Like I used to follow a lot of the news, and I would get very angry, and I would share a lot of that. While I do use it, I also use Reddit even more, and I use Discord a little bit. But yeah, I don't use Instagram that much, but I do keep it to where I keep my interaction with other people to as minimal as possible.
Yeah.
So because that and it's inevitably somebody's gonna has to make a comment, something stupid, something to try to start an argument. It happens on FB, but I ignore it. I don't get
Yeah.
involved into it. It's not worth the energy. Facebook can be a great and time killing media, social media, if you use it right and just stay away from just like most things, the comment sections,
Yeah.
anything. Just don't follow your news. I stopped following a lot of news sites and I just get my news on my own. So it was able to really kill it. But anyways, what I was getting at with the social media influences is the market is big enough to have multiple aspects with multiple different niches you can find. And I know it's kind of a strange comparison, but I would compare it to comic books in some way. Just for example, comic books like oh, it's superhero stories, and yes, it is, but there's genres within comics for any reader for any reason possible. And I think as the hobby expanded with 2020 and with Pokemon, you start seeing that now as people are becoming more educated within the hobby. People are getting older; they're looking at it from a different lens, and you're getting those individuals that are more going to be willing to seek out somebody like Catch 'Em All Collectibles or Squeaks when he made videos. You know, those as you mature, I feel like you're attracted to those sorts of people, but that doesn't mean you can't still enjoy. I don't want to say mind-numbing moments, but that's what it is with pack openings.
Yeah.
You can still enjoy it; it's entertainment. That's essentially what it is. It's entertainment.
Yeah, I watched a bunch of Lorcana openings here recently. Um, yeah, for my social media though, I am on Instagram a lot. It is very surface level. I do kind of like that though.
Yep.
Facebook for what it is. I mean, it can have a lot of groups, but I mean, I kind of think that's one of the more toxic places
Yep.
for sure.
It definitely can be. I agree. I agree.
But I also, even outside of the hobby, I don't really frequent there. Like I never post. I hardly ever open it up. Um, yeah, pretty much like when my wife posts a picture of us and the kids, and she'll tag me in it, and that's how people find out what I'm doing on there. So it's usually through one of her posts. But yeah, I like Instagram. It is very surface level. That has its own problems with people flexing and showing things off. I really want to start focusing mine on maybe more educational posts. Like, here's this card. Here's there's distribution for this card. Like, little known facts and maybe like a personalized story of how I got the card and stuff like that. Make it a little more personal rather than like sometimes you just gotta bust the king out of its cage and then show a picture of first edition Charizard. You're just fishing for to likes and just making a post just because. That's the stuff I don't really care for. But yeah, YouTube in a way though, outside, it is what you make it. I follow a lot of people like Catch 'Em All and old school Pokemon and SM Pratt and people like those
Yeah.
who just kind of talk and they're not, doing the crazy faces trying to get big. Just talking knowledge essentially. So a lot of those I do like YouTube the most because those videos are a lot of those videos are like 3 hours long sometimes, but you can listen to those in the background while you're doing other things, or I can have it up while I'm, playing a game or something. Like I can, like YouTube is like my main form, but it's always like in the background for the most part. But yeah, it's interesting to see how it's changed. Back when I first got into the hobby and made my original Pokemon channel, that's like non-existent now. You would essentially make videos to show your trade binders and openings, and that's basically it. And on the trade binder videos, you could like privately message on YouTube back then. So people would send you a message like, "Hey, I want this card, and check out my trade binder to see if anything that you like." And you check out their trade binder video, and then you guys work out a trade, and then you literally send cards through the mail. Totally trust system. And that was how it worked back then. Every time you did a trade, you made a video. Here's a TCBM, a trade cards by mail. So this is what I'm sending to, Trollazard. And then Trollazard is sending me this in return. You make a video, they make a video. You send it through the mail, and then you open it up on camera, and then you guys give each other a little shout out. That's how the world worked. So it was definitely different, but shout out to Trollazard as well. He was an old school person that a lot of people don't really. I bet a lot of people haven't even heard of him, but yeah, he was an OG as well. He's still lurking around in the shadows. He's quite the crazy guy, but it'd be funny if he started making videos again. I remember I shouted him out because he had this crazy video for back in the day. He had his name was Trollazard. Chip was his name IRL. Yeah, if you type in Trollazard on YouTube, he might pop up. But he had a binder video back in the day of he made a post 300 Charizards and counting, and he had a 360 card binder all loaded up with Charizards, and he had every language first edition Charizard just chilling in a binder, and he had a whole page of Shining Charizard first editions, which back then they were $100 a piece, but those were insane. It was insane to see that binder back then. But yeah, he looks like he still has his YouTube channel there. He's got 494 subscribers, but yeah, he was a OG. Tons of smaller YouTubers like that were around and trading with each other. Nobody had more than 500 subscribers. It was awesome.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's kind of, I don't know, for me it's sad to see what it's become. I haven't really given in to those channels like I've said, but for new people coming in, that's what they're watching, obviously. PokeRev being the biggest. A lot of kids coming into the hobby, I'm sure that's where a lot of them funnel to. And you definitely see that influence at card shows now. All the kids want to open their cards and just go nuts. And
Modern still being king.
Yeah, there's a meme out there of a influencer opening up a Charizard and then them just screaming their head off.
Which, I wonder, honestly, how long can some of that exist with that attitude? I mentioned before how it's a lot of it is there allows you to have that different entertainment. Sometimes you want to watch sports, sometimes you want to watch a documentary, sometimes you want to watch an actual film, But I just don't understand how these people some of these guys can just have, 6-figure views with just pack opening.
Yeah.
That kind of blows me away. I think some of it is living vicariously, but I just don't know. It's so mind numbing, but then again, I watch 4 seasons of Yu-Gi-Oh! So, I understand it.
Yeah, and a lot of it is, like you said, escapism. They don't want to have to sit down and listen to a 3-hour video or even a 10-minute video where it requires thought, or they don't want to listen to SM Pratt analyze the market because then they're thinking about the market. They just want to sit down and watch a 10-minute pack opening video, and they just want to see the cards. And not going to lie, even during the hype, when everyone was watching it, I tuned into a few PokeRev openings just to have on to the background. It's just, it's cool to have in the background sometimes.
Yeah. I would open and I would turn on PokeRev because I thought it was kind of fun.
Yep.
But, I don't know.
A lot of people will be thinking, like we're thinking though, Um, I think those channels will still do great. Obviously, the growth has slowed down naturally with the hobby slowing down. They will continue to grow like a lot of those Leonharts and PokeRev. They're just big enough now where they just grow no matter what. They just have to
Yeah.
be consistent and stay with the trends. But yeah, it's just interesting to see. Like I said, I think a lot of the younger generation, it's always fun in games for a while, but then you kind of get tired of it and you need a little more in depth situation. Um, yeah, I still feel like a lot of people haven't capitalized on the knowledge of the hobby. Um, or, signatures are a big thing. Nobody really understands when signatures happen, what artists are actually rare signatures, how many things they have signed, how many events they've done. I know Swolepoke in another video, I think one of Radar's videos, he was talking about how he might try to expand videos into like the world of signatures, but that's like an untapped market. So I don't know.
Well, like I was looking right now, there's somebody with it's a Mario Pikachu. I think it's an auto 10. It might be an auto 10 PSA 10. And I was like, okay, who's the signature? And it was Charles Martinet. And I was like, I feel like there's a certain naivety with that. Or maybe just like that's somebody who doesn't quite, is still kind of inexperienced, but has a lot of money. Because most people aren't going to want the Charles Martinet signature on that card. They're going to
Yeah.
want Cookies Haito, unless you have both. If you get both, then that's neat. But just the one, and I would almost suggest it might decrease the value of the card unless you find the right buyer.
It would in my eyes. Like, yeah, I wouldn't want that either. I'd rather have the
Exactly.
artist.
Yeah. Now, if it was both, then we're talking about some, I think, more serious money. But you still got to find the right collector. But if it's got both, that's pretty cool. I will admit. But that's the thing. Try to. I imagine there's probably only one or two that even has both. But you talk about people being more knowledgeable in the hobby, and that's true. Like people know stuff with the Japanese Pokemon cards and like the promos and all that, and where the value's at. But I also still think there's some naivety when it comes to how the market can work and how it will work for higher end cards like that. I
Mm-hmm.
think there's a little bit of inexperience there because a lot of these people, a lot of these businesses, whatnot, streamers popped up post pandemic, post hype, so they came in during that time frame. Now, did they do their research on a lot of these cards? Maybe. I'm sure you do pick up a lot if you're buying a lot of cards too, because you have to know where they came from. But in terms of market trends, you're relatively inexperienced,
Mm-hmm.
especially with buying niches and how buyer trends can change, all of that. And one thing we've learned from these shows is, yeah, you can get great value. That's something that one-off streamers have allowed us to have is great value, even during the Junk Slab era. But simultaneously, the people that are supporting a lot of these whatnot streamers, especially with their mystery boxes, they're not getting scammed. It's just they're preying off of, honestly, inexperience within the hobby, naivety or stupidity from some of their wall haunching base, like some of their viewer base. Like, oh, I got $100 mystery box, and I got 2 evolution slabs, and they're or whatever, and they're saying that each slab is $25, and it's like, yeah, if you can get that ship, sure, but a lot of times it's going to go under that.
Yeah.
That's just an example. What I'm saying is, you're not getting the most bang for your buck most of the times with these mystery boxes, which has become post pandemic a really big market and a way for a lot of these people to make money.
Or they know those cards that they include in those boxes are like tanking in price, so they hurry up and get them in a
Yeah.
product like that.
Yep,
So
and
yeah, like yeah, they are that value, but they're going down. Like
or which is where we get to something we haven't quite touched yet. We're talking about how, as I mentioned earlier, how the social media influencers might have an agenda, might have a prerogative to have to be making money because that's their jobs for a lot of these people. They're trying to make money. They're trying to make a name for themselves even. And these mystery boxes are a trap.
Yeah.
Now, it's your money, obviously, and you feel good spending money. And at the end of the day, once you spent it, it is what it is. But continuing to spend this, like if you look at the people who are doing this, for a lot of the people, it's the younger aspect of the hobby.
And there is a little part of that conversation too that we haven't touched on either about whatnot and all the thing going on with them right now.
Yeah.
Because like whatnot, me and you both have never really got into that.
We watched
So
the Christmas Day opening of the first edition box from Logan Paul.
yeah, and that's like it.
Yeah.
I've deleted the app. I haven't had the app for a long time. I get it's a good platform for some things. Being a overflood of junk slabs and people looking to get cheap slabs, it's a very quick
hmm
and easy way to turn those, and it is a benefit for the hobby.
It is.
And
I
I
agree.
think it's helping us through this time period
hmm
to like redistribute these cards. Whether or not those cards will ever gain value back or where they go after the sale and whatnot, who knows? They probably just go into someone's bedroom and rot away. Um, but yeah, the like whatnot has a purpose. Um, People have taken that purpose and made things like these bounties and stuff where you're like you if you pay this much you have a bounty for this card, if we pull this card you win, and it's like an alt art or something that's ridiculously hard to pull. And yeah, I don't know. There's a whole world of whatnot there, and those little side things with bounties and like special, wheel games where you spin the wheel and all that situation
It's
has,
gambling.
yeah, and they are cracking down on that pretty hard. Um, I do know the controversy with Blake's breaks on
Yep.
whatnot. There
He
has
is one
been
I
a
was
lot of
thinking about.
stuff. Yep. So yeah, there has been a huge crackdown with that. They did actually update their policy to negate all those bounties and stuff like that. So they're trying to make it a better place. I'm sure there's going to be something new that comes along though. Where there are rules, there are people trying to negotiate the cracks.
Yeah,
Um,
I know he got kicked off whatnot. But as somebody who's not incredibly familiar with the ins and outs, especially of whatnot, what exactly, and for those that might not be familiar with this aspect that might be listening, what exactly did got get him banned?
I think it was some type of like technically scam he was doing on there,
Yeah,
but let me see if I can find the details because that's why I said me and you weren't really
he was
invested
swapping
into
the
much.
cards. He was is what I thought was happening during these bounties. He was hiding, if I'm not mistaken. That's how I understood it. Now I didn't. I was just reading on Reddit what people were frustrated with it about it, and how I understood it was he was making it to where people that should be getting these cards weren't.
Yeah, yeah, and it's a little complicated. It was very drawn out. People were like calling him out, and then whatnot was like
Yeah, over
investigating it
weeks.
for a while.
Yeah,
Um, but yeah, I don't know all the ins and outs of the details because I wasn't really
yeah.
following it. But
But
yeah,
he's not the first one. Nostalgic Thrill. He got the boot.
yeah,
Um, how many? I mean, there's been a lot of people, and that's kind of what we're saying. It's like essentially for a lot of whatnot. Yes, it's cool because it allows people to be involved in the hobby, and it is entertainment. But it's also like a shopping network for Pokemon cards in some ways, right? But now you don't have a bunch of regulations with these people. It's just private entities, private individuals running these channels, and you don't know who that person is. You don't know how scummy they are. You don't know how much greed that they desire. For example, I mentioned how a lot of young people do it, but it's not all just younger people too. It's I know my stepdad. He's like at 60. He watches this with the whatnot streamers because you can get. I mean, he's smart about it because you can get great deals on it.
Yeah.
on whatnot. If you can win the auction, obviously.
There was a way, like, if, yeah, there was a way, like, with the energies. I think it was, like, they had bounties for, like, guessing the energy or getting a certain
Yeah.
energy. And I think there was a video where he had the pack, like, or he had a pack on standby where he, like, knew what energy was in there. And he like had it palmed in his hand, and he acted like he was picking up the other pack, but for like half a second it slides off screen, and then he
Eh.
like pulls it back, but he just pulled back the pack that he had palmed over the top of his, other pack that he slid off screen.
Hmm.
So there was a lot of stuff like that. So it's
And he was the ex-football player, right?
I believe so. I
Yeah. So
didn't dig much
that's
all
what's
into that,
unreal.
but
That's what's unreal to me is he was already a millionaire before this from his contract. Probably came from a decent family even before them that had money, and he was still trying to make more money. Like that's just greed.
yeah.
He was already making millions of dollars. He made millions of dollars with his football contract. I think it was over. I think it was more than 10 million. I mean, after taxes, whatever. But then he even made even millions of dollars doing this. Like I
Yeah.
don't feel sorry for him because he should have plenty of money in the bank or in investments to easily start a real job if he had to. But he's pretty much killed his career within the hobby with that stuff.
Yeah.
Because nobody's going to trust you.
Yeah, like I said, I don't know all the ins and outs, but
Yeah,
there was multiple things with that and bounties, and yeah, it all came crashing down. So yeah, if anyone knows like the full details, I'm sure they'll let us know in the
yeah,
comments. But we, I mean, that goes to show that we felt that ick from whatnot. This whole time, like we never really been involved with it. It just had some weird vibes, but then again, that those aren't the cards or type of auctions that we're interested in.
and you can
Um,
find most of these auctions for comparable prices on eBay. The only
yeah,
thing you're watching it for is entertainment purposes and get a gambling fix
yeah,
because you are facing a chase. You're chasing a high. You absolutely are.
yeah,
And some people it's just kind of fun, but that's what they're doing. They're chasing that dopamine high that they give this. That's probably one of the main reasons why a lot of these folks will watch it and beyond the. And there's some folks that think they're supporting a cool guy and person who they want to succeed. These people, but most of the times these people don't give a shit about you.
yeah,
Like that, like you're just a number to them. You know what I mean? And that's something where a lot of people I think either don't want to think about because it is kind of a more cynical point of view and perspective, or they're too naive to consider otherwise.
yeah. That's another thing too. I don't understand the culture of like people watching a whatnot or YouTube or Twitch streamer and like donating money just to have them like read their line of text, and it
Oh,
like
yeah.
it makes people like, ooh, he read my line of text, and it's like,
Ooh, senpai noticed me.
yeah, kind of gives those vibes, but it's like, oh, he acknowledged me, he read my text, awesome.
Which I think says more about mental illness in this country than anything else.
Yeah,
Honestly,
and you
I,
do
I
get
honestly,
that
that's
that
the
dopamine though. It's like, ooh, you saw my
you
comment,
do
I got
exactly.
read on the video. But it's like, okay, like, yeah, maybe say something nice, cheer him up, or support him. That's totally understandable. But I mean, some of these people just get ridiculous with that, and it's pretty sad.
And at the same time, I mean, I don't know. Depends on what the cost is and how much somebody does it. But at that point, that's you should be like, oh, put two and two together. Oh, this person's all about just trying to make money.
Yeah,
Like now, Patreon makes sense, right? Like this guy's given time with you, but he wants to have a little bit of payment for it for their knowledge, and that's completely. I mean, we've had that in the Western society for millennia, paying for somebody's time and service. So that to me is just a relationship right there, like a business relationship or like and
yeah,
whatever you want to call it. But that there's a certain now if that person's taking advantage of that, that's a different story. But we don't see as much of that, right?
hmm well,
A lot
because
of
it's
time
behind the paywall too. I'm sure there's a
that
lot
that
of
too.
lot
I
of bad
mean,
things, but
yeah, but a lot of the people who I kind of think about when come to mind with that is like S. and Pratt.
yeah,
And I think with him, you get somebody that's literally been in the hobby. Like he might have left for 4 years, I think, something like that, and he came back like 2005. I mean, somebody that has been in the hobby for that long, there's very few people that can say that. Very few. So there's a certain knowledge and experience there with market trends and Pokemon TCG history and with how it influences with actual reality. And I think there's general knowledge, and he has these great videos he makes, and then he also has this Patreon where you can pick his brain a little bit more, and I think that's great.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a pretty good setup. Catch 'em All has their own Patreon with uh, nostalgics or like a couple guys running in that Discord, and there's a setup pretty good too.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's definitely a weird world. I do like the Patreon system, where if you like, yeah, really want to offer like a little extra service for supporters, like that'd be pretty cool. But
There's another one that came off my mind was Pokenomics, but yeah, he hasn't posted anything in a long time.
yeah, Pokenomics, that's who I was talking about with Catch 'em All. Like
Yeah,
their Patreon is together with each other.
yeah, yeah, for
So
sure. But I think he just kind of he doesn't feel like making videos. I think he's hit where he wants to within the community. He'll make videos every so often, but I think he gets more, or maybe he's busy. I don't know. I'm not in his Patreon, but I think he probably is putting a lot of time in that aspect, and because that's where he's making the money than trying to create videos.
yeah, he does a lot for the him and Dan Catch 'em All are together. So Dan's really consistent, and then putting out the Discord and the Patreon news. So I think he does a lot of work on the Discord and Patreon. But yeah, he hasn't been uploading too much,
No,
just for like
and,
free info. But
yeah, yeah, and that's completely fine. Like I completely understand from that perspective. You feel like you're what you wanted to do within the hobby was what you're doing now. So, and I mean, yeah, a lot of it, if you honestly start kind of looking into market histories, and if you think about scarcity, if you think about a lot of some big factors within the hobby, like which sets looking back will probably go up in value, which would be good to be buy super low that will definitely go up to, I don't know, 30, $40 or whatever in a couple years. Those are sorts of things. Yeah, you can go ahead and look out on your own, but the biggest thing that somebody like Pokenomics gives is he spends a lot of his spare time going through various markets. So that's something where, and because of that time he spends, that allows you to, he does the work for you in some ways.
yeah,
Um, but we kind of stick to things that we like, and we kind of stick to that world more than anything.
yeah,
So that's why we're not saying like, oh, you should maybe think about getting junk evolution slabs because you can get them for like $10 sometimes, and that those things within a couple years for a lot of, especially the OG artwork, is probably going to be like 30, $40.
yep,
So it's get like it's small things like that, like that's how you start, and that's some knowledge that you can get from being involved in something like Pokenomics, because um, when it comes to being able to buy which cards or what because you don't have to spend $1,000 to buy an investment card, right? It's going to be a lot easier for a $10 card to become a $30 or $40 card than a $1,000 card is going to become a $2,000 card.
yep.
So there can be a lot more gains with the lower tier, which is something that I think a lot of people don't necessarily think about or consider. But
That's
that's
pretty
something.
much that's pretty much what Dan does. Catch 'em All.
Yeah.
He's been buying up Nagaba EVs and grading them.
Yep.
He's been
Yep.
buying up Celebration Charizards and grading them.
Stuff like that. Yep. And
Yeah,
then either you.
there's
Yeah.
margins are small, but it
Yep.
gets there. There's tons of little plays right now, and yeah, it's interesting to see those plays still play out
Because
because
you're seeing people that have a lot of liquidity in the hobby. I know this might not seem like crazy, like world changing knowledge, because a lot of it you could reach on your own, and in fact we do ourselves, right? uh, but what you're getting from these people is their experience, especially Dan within the hobby. You're getting like his real life experience with he's being able to do these things because he also has such a gross when it comes to the ink, how many cards he's grading and all that.
yeah, pretty much a constant flow is his goal.
Whereas with us, even if we like, from at least for me, right? Even if I sold the Lorcana cards at what I want, I mean, you're still talking about it's going to take a long time to get to that point. Because for me, I can only for something like that because it does take work. I mean, I couldn't secure more than a couple grand trying to do something like that personally.
Yeah,
And that makes it to where it's very difficult. It's not impossible to make money. It's just you got to be very smart and very knowledgeable about which areas you go. And are you going more like immediately trying to flip, or are you buying as an investment and then flipping and using that as your launching pad to be able to go further? That's
for
kind of me
sure.
just speaking out loud because that's kind of where I'm at. Once I sell some of Lorcana and especially keep on going up within my job. So
Yep. I thought about, once I finish my goals, could get into more of the money side of it.
yeah.
But yeah, it's always been my goals first. So I'm in no rush. Even with making videos, it's just only to keep personal interest. So I like making them, but yeah, it's just for personal gain or to maintain my personal interest in the hobby.
Yeah.
But
See how I would do that flipping would be more with if I went the business side, it'd be more to be able to get better cards. Maybe take some of that cash out as it's extraneous income. Like maybe I would take some of that cash, go on a nice vacation or something like that. But ultimately, I would do it to as a side source of income, and that's where all my money within the hobby goes, or that's extraneous money, extra money for whenever I might need it. That's how I would go. And then if I end up getting big time, which I probably wouldn't want to put that much effort into it, that'd be a whole other subject though, right? Like over time. But
yeah, that's basically what I've been doing. Like a lot of
yeah.
my collection funding the last 3 years or so, especially, has just been the same recycling pool of money or
Hmm.
cards. Like I haven't bought a new card since really around the hype with like money that came from outside of the hobby. So a lot of the stuff I bought the last couple years come from stuff that I sold that we sent off to grade during the hype. Um, more stuff came back and like I slowly bought more cards with that money. And then like I took all those cards that I bought to Collecticon and sold those. And so yeah, it's been like a revolving door, but now that my goals are finishing up, the way I can do that is starting to shut. So it's becoming more strenuous. Obviously, selling Lorcana would pretty much complete a lot of goals, and I'd ultimately be satisfied with where I'm at and could focus more on the money side of things. But I have to find a way to like jumpstart that again, and it'd probably be in selling my like first editions or gold stars. But
Mm.
I feel like that it would like I don't want to do that, but then in another way, like I could just buy those cards back eventually, and it would start the snowball that is the money side of the business. But
See, you're
we'll see.
how you've done. Excuse me, how you've kind of done it has made me rethink and reshape how I went about doing things. At first, I was just trying to kill all my binder sets, right? Um, but partially because of listening to you, but also because of individuals like kind of seeing like what Catch 'em All Collectibles and Squeaks was kind of talking about at times, it made me reconsider focusing on the big boys and then the smaller guys. Because just for example, the fact that you can still get base set unlimited for like under $500, the whole set, I think speaks volumes on that. Yes, things will increase in price along with inflation, blah blah blah, but the big cards are going to be quicker outside of your price range than the smaller cards will be.
Yeah, and
And
I
because
I
of
have collected like I always went for the bigger ones first. Like and
yeah,
even with binder sets, like I
yeah.
might I might buy the complete non hollow set all at once. And then for the hollows, I'll start with like the biggest one first and work my way down. Like that usually does pretty well.
Well, what got me into the also was like seeing the prices of like my grails popping up, but try not to track too much. But essentially, now that Lurkana is reaching the point where I can see the selling, and then we're facing the year with bonus, Christmas, all that. Um, I know I'm going to get the Mario this year,
Yeah.
and it's because that prioritization. It's a whole other episode that I don't want to get too much into, but like basically, being able to venture into social media, I don't want to say influence, but social media um, representatives, even. I prefer to call it like that, that actually offer service to the community, can help enlighten your goal focus and priority and reframing your perspective, even. Whereas which is contradictory to the whatnot streamers and the pack openers and
Yeah.
the modern specific focus of pack, set for set, like Danny Phantom, which I think he's also a pretty good guy, and I actually like his videos. But he focuses on the modern, like the ultra modern, right? So
Yeah.
that's that demographic. If you don't care about that, he's not really for you. That's why I just watch him every so often. But I do think he's a generally decent dude.
Yeah, for sure. And all these negatives that we've highlighted, there's no denying the social media side has helped the hobby. I mean, that's basically where the craze came from. COVID and stimulus has definitely helped, but like a lot of the driving factor was social media and like Logan Paul and
Yeah.
doing all that. That's undeniable. Um, it's just nice to see the growth for sure, but I pretty much to sum things up, I think people are ready to take things a little more seriously, and it's like, okay, like I'm tired of the hype. Um, I think in general, we've seen collectors get a little smarter who are actually involved. Like there are still a lot of people, going hard on the modern sets, and I don't really think that's the best idea. But
Yeah.
like you and people in your boat who came in around the hype or early hype and really took the time to get the knowledge and all that stuff, like those people are getting smarter and like they know what to go after. And yeah, I think we're just kind of seeing that now. So
Yeah, and I think, I mean, for me, my urgency, and I think other people as well, maybe even to an extent with the Japanese spike, was people want these cards before they feel like it gets to the point where it's a price where they can't rationalize paying, and that's kind of where I'm at. I think there's a lot of people that made that jump, but there is just one more aspect that we haven't really discussed with social media influencers. So we know how we talked about how you don't know what somebody's agenda is, how much of a focus is basically just it being their job. Well, there's also being able to try to influence the market with specific cards and the toxicity that can be brought from one influencer over whatever. We don't really see that too much in Pokemon, but it has been a thing before where you can have whole bases, rabid bases, just have this hive mind mentality and attack in some shape or form, either in person, an object, a business, whatever. We see it in a lot of other forms of social media, and we there it's been a little bit, but not as much. But there's still some of those other negatives that is one of the biggest detriments, in my opinion, to social media, and one of the main reasons you can point to. This is why you don't want to use social media too much.
yeah, everyone's got their bubbles, and yeah, that's the biggest downside. Like to society, like you said, as a whole. Um, not picking any sides, but it goes for all sides. You get all the Trump supporters in their own bubble. You get all Biden supporters in their own bubble, and it's equally bad on both
All of the
sides.
leftists, like the leftist, has their own bubble too, and it can be easily because Biden isn't a leftist. But when you have, but to go further, the leftists are just as toxic in some ways with how they attack each other as any other group.
Yeah, and then even like the super conservative side, like the a lot of people. Which if you're really heavily leaning one way, it's like, well, why do you say that for? But it's just we gotta look in the mirror. It's happening on all sides, and
Yeah,
people get in their own bubbles.
yeah.
We experience that in the Pokemon hobby. We think like, how is modern doing this good? Like, why would someone buy that? But
Well, these
it's
are general questions, like actual questions. But like attack, say it'd be if we attack people that only collected ultra modern, right?
yeah,
Like there is, I don't really see too much of that within the Pokemon hobby, but all it takes is just a couple somehow some influencers getting into a beef, and boom, there you go.
yeah. Get a couple sides versus each other and stuff like that.
And they don't realize how stupid they all look fighting over social media influencer on social media, wasting all that time.
Yeah. Yeah, the bottom line is everyone's in their own bubble, and we think a good play is a good play because we have like certain knowledge on certain things, and like new people don't have that knowledge and think what they're doing is a good play. And a lot of times that's our biggest thing, is realizing that we're in our own bubble and surrounded by people who are knowledgeable in the hobby, and the average person is not. So that's the biggest thing we have to focus on. But I really try to be mindful of that. Trying to look to the outside and see what the normal person looks like. But yeah, you definitely got to be aware of your own bubbles for sure. It helps you out, and it makes you a better person for others too. But anyway, though, let's wrap up the old social media talk.
Yep.
I'm sure those things, we got an election year coming up. Those things are going to be even more evident. So just be aware of your bubbles, people.
How much the media, like, this is where questioning where the media is coming from. It's amplified.
Yeah.
All of a sudden you hear these, you start seeing these propaganda-based stories, or issues. I don't want to say issues, but stories that you have created, or this perspective or something that's trying to be spun a certain way. And it's, oh my God, you just feel like the world's about to end. It's just nonstop.
And we see it in Pokemon. We see the propaganda in Pokemon, like Scarlet and Violet is here. This is the best set ever. These cards look amazing with the silver borders. Look at this. Look at this. Look at this. It's like, is it the best set ever?
Or is that Pokemon paying to hype it up?
Yeah.
Like, that's where the perspective comes in. Like,
is it just you trying to give me the biggest O face you can just so I click on your video so you get the ad revenue? Like, is it? You just got to be aware.
Or like the best DC movie since The Dark Knight.
Yeah.
That literally gets pushed around for every DC movie nowadays. And it became a big meme after the bust that was The Flash. But I enjoyed it. But it was still a huge box office bomb. But that's what we're talking about. All of a sudden, these random articles you start seeing on your feed, whatever it may be, of just this perspective, and you just have to kind of look at it. And all of a sudden, people's biases are just like, no, it's like this. I do think you do have. It seems like to me, after 2020, you had a lot of people kind of remove themselves from social media.
Yeah, for sure.
So, and that's a big reason, and I think it's for the best for anybody that does it. But you also people go further into their escapist hobbies, Pokemon included.
Yeah, for sure. I guess with that, though, that'll wrap up the old main topic. Let's real quickly tap into a couple questions here.
Yep.
And, we'll wrap it up. So what do you have on the old question?
I think mine's a pretty good one. It's obviously based off of our topic. It's, how will the aging of the hobby change the dynamic between the social media influencer and the hobby enthusiast?
I think I'm going to go ahead and say my question too, because I feel like we hit on it, but I also feel like it goes into your question too.
Okay.
So mine was in 40, 50 years, how do you see the mainstream social media around Pokemon be? So yeah, it's basically the same, I feel, but I feel like as we get older,
it's a little different. It's a little different because you're going further. I'm talking the next 10 to 15 years mainly. You're talking long term.
I think we'll still see these channels do the same tactics. We will see, more of a broad spectrum, kind of like Sports Card Investor for the sports world. It's not just his YouTube channel. It's a business. It's his YouTube channel. He has multiple employees making different styles of videos. He has an app. He does card shows. It's a more broad business rather than a single YouTube channel. We're already seeing Leonhardt kind of do that with Rare Candy. He's built a Rare Candy team where they do auctions. They have a rare candy competitive team where like he has a team of people who compete in events. They were represented at Worlds, so it's kind of like esports. You know, they're making teams for Pokemon and ultimately a business out of those teams. So I think we're going to see a lot more of that. Um, I think it's going to be, if you really want a quick answer, I mean, I really just think look at sports and what it's doing today. You see these guys walking around card shows with 10,000 plus cards doing deals. I think that's casual sports right now. I mean, it's not a big deal for a sport card to be that expensive. Pokemon, it's relatively new still. It's only been around 25 little more years, and I think that's going to be us in the future. Like a lot of kids today, they don't really care too much about sports cards. It's still doing very well, like sports cards, and there is a lot of interest in it. But I mean, not as much as Pokemon. And I don't know. I think Pokemon is going to be becoming more of a presence in those situations. I feel like.
I don't think sports is in any sort of jeopardy with the younger generation because the younger generation seems to trend towards individual players that they want to support. And there's a lot of money involved. Again, key thing, a lot of money. That means it's always going to bring in new people. Now, not getting to the issues of it, but and a lot of people will also go from Pokemon to sports. And now, will they stick with sports or kind of do both? That kind of depends. So I do think the aging of the hobby will make at least a certain age demographic not be prone to certain things within social media influencers. But there's also going to be more niches within the hobby because of there's a generational gap. So I think you could have the younger generation potentially have some of those same issues. But at the same time, now this is just anecdotal, but I know a few teachers, and one of the things that I couldn't help but notice that they said were some of Gen Alpha, so that's the youngest gen, that's like under age 10. They question, again, anecdotal, they question Gen Z's obsession with TikTok, for example. So you have, it seems like, different social media platforms emerge as the generations change. Like with our generation, what do you have? Instagram, Facebook, Reddit. Well, I mean, we were there from the beginning. MySpace, we were literally there during the beginning. But with some of these other apps, what's the main ones that you can? Well, for Gen Z, it is TikTok.
Yeah.
So you kind of have to wonder, will there be somehow a different? This seems to be not possible, right? I feel like we've hit every single possible utility you could get, but who knows? Will there be another platform which would bring in people that's even more predatory? And I think there's definitely a real possibility of that.
Yeah, there will be something. Back in the day, like when there was like Bebo and MySpace, and like then Facebook came along. It's like, well, what's going to be after Facebook? But we're getting to the point now where people are kind of getting tired of that. They just pick one. And I remember when Vine went out and was gone. And I remember hearing about TikTok, and I was like, oh yeah, that's like the next big app. There's no, like, Vine went away and there's no short form content. Like I heard about TikTok. I'm like, that's a no brainer. That's going to be the next big app. And looking back, I mean, I should have capitalized on that maybe with like content, but it's like I was just never interested in that. I'm like, oh yeah, that's going to be the next big thing. Not really for me, but whatever. So yeah, even TikTok was filling a void of Vine. So it's like, yeah, are we entering a period where like something has to go away for something else to kick in or what? But yeah, I feel pretty comfortable saying what it'd be like in the 10 years with basically those companies forming and getting bigger and stuff like that. But yeah, down the road, I mean, who knows? We just have seen so much change in this short period of time. Who knows what's in store?
And it's very interesting that they're doing this because I don't know the details. I remember when Leonhardt was talking about it with this team he was going to make. I don't know the details of that sponsorship, but sponsorship usually means they're going to get their money back at some point, um, or more than just the exposure of their channel. And I wonder if they win something, if the card has to be sold. Like if somebody places, if the
Yeah.
card has to be sold because that's a part of the deal. You get to travel there, you get to have all these amenities, but if you win something big, now the money might be yours, but like the card goes to above, essentially back to the sponsorship. I wouldn't be surprised if that something like that could begin happening. Um, and that starts becoming trend. I can see like Poke Rabbit. It's a very unique thing, but it also builds exposure to the TCG too, to the competitive side.
Yeah, for sure. Guess with
I
that
was just,
though, have you got anything else to say?
yeah, I was just gonna say just one more thing, one more thing,
One more thing.
and then it'd be five more. But no, seriously, no. So I just to kind of finalize what I was saying, I think as people age, they will potentially get more critical of information. Now, you're always going to have kind of the less educated aspect that struggles with critical thinking to be able to think like, don't trust your confirmation bias. And I do think the youngest generation appears to be potentially better suited for that, but even some of Gen Z is more critical of what that information is. Whereas you have even millennials has it too, like where you just like, oh, believe it. It's worse with the older generations. The millennials just whatever. It's probably not true. Um, but it is there within our generation, and Gen C seems to be more critical of that in some aspects. I wonder if that will extend to the hobby aspect with Pokemon, if they will age. But it's I think there's going to have to be some sort of there's going to be a standard within the hobby essentially that has to be understood. This relationship that will be created once it's been around long enough, just like the business relationships of giving your service and knowledge for something. I wouldn't be surprised as you see whatnot become more regulatory with their rules if that's going to be one of those things where essentially a purge style situation occurs on social media that basically cancels that person.
Yeah. Yeah, there's one positive of the younger generations more skeptical. Even had the sister in law who's Gen Z tell me it was the other day, like talking. I was playing some of my music, and of course, I have like quite the wide variety more than most. But she's like, man, like songs from your generation were like had character. They were like different, and
And
like
so it begins.
kind of playing at like all the stuff that is made now sounds the same.
It's
And
true though.
she was like, yeah, looking outside the box of her generation even. So that's their attitude for everything. It's like, why do people like that? Like they're looking at the reasons why and like digging into it, and they are skeptical about everything even more so than we are. So I think the way to do YouTube in the future, I think everyone should ultimately like having an audience in the future is going to be like huge. It already is huge, but like people in potentially an AI driven world, 100 years from now, like just having an online presence is going to be a big thing. And a lot of
Yeah.
people, there's going to be like an exponential growth of YouTube channels. Maybe they're not all 100,000 subscribers, but an exponential growth of like 1,000 to 5,000 sub channels that have just a small village following them. And, it's not big numbers to make a living off of, but it's their own bubble. People are creating their own bubbles, like we talked about. And I think that's a good thing if you're real with that, doing genuine videos and not going over the top and stuff like that. And I don't know. I think people are craving more of that stuff and are more likely to connect to it in the future because they don't want to feel like an object, or they don't want to feel like this video has been manipulated just to like trigger your brain.
Yeah, I do think with a lot of the informational age, it's easier to discover things, right? I mean, yes, you can take advantage of it with, misinformation, but a lot of things that were more difficult to find the information on, like in the mid to late 2000s, is now easier for folks to learn. It's easier just to like. I remember when Wikipedia became a thing, right? That was like I was in high school when that. I know, but I was in high school, and but no, it's I mean Wikipedia is just one of the many different things I'm referring to. Some to you can really learn about maybe some of this sketchiness that like some of our government has been involved in, some of the terrible things they've done to societies and countries around the world. And you start to question, why are we still doing this? You
Yeah.
know, I remember in the mid 2000s, whenever I watch a documentary on like the war on drugs and, you know, some of the other situations with all the coups that were a thing that our government played a role in. And that was whenever, if I talked about it, it sounded like a conspiracy theory to a lot of people back then. But, you know, I was in high school talking about these things. And
You were woke,
now,
bro.
I mean, obviously, but it always, like, I was seriously talking about the war on drugs in like 2006, 2007. And it's funny how some of my friends think I post too much about left leaning politics. But it's like, well, I was always left leaning, bro. Like, I come from a descendant of somebody who, you know, a grandparent who basically supported JFK in the area, you know. So I mean, it comes from like a long line. But anyways, the whole point is it's easier to find this information and find this.
Because you come from that background though, you've been in a bubble and you've been
I
influenced
have
by that bubble.
I have been within the bubble, but I've also removed myself from said bubbles
Yeah.
completely. So I know it from within and I know it from outside. But anyways, the whole point I was getting at was, oh, now I've distracted from the point. um,
Well, people will get it. We know where we were
yeah,
headed.
yeah, but whatever.
All right. Well, let's wrap it up there, guys. We'll catch you in a couple weeks for the next episode. We're going to sit down and probably cover some topics, kind of plan out a few episodes ahead. Because now that Go Fest is over and Worlds is over, we should be good to plan out a few more without any interruptions. And we'll let you guys know what we decide. But, yep, I guess that'll be it. And we'll catch you in the next one.
Peace. See you next time.
Bye.
Whoa!
Charizard!
Open right now!